I'd like to welcome everyone, and I'm going to start the meeting now. And our first order of business will be a pledge of allegiance to the flag, and would everybody please join? Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm just going to give a brief opening remarks, and then Brian Savage, our town administrator, has a PowerPoint that he is going to present here. And while he presents the PowerPoint, we're going to wait to have questions and opinions afterwards. I'd like to be able to have him go through that first. This is somewhat of a controversial issue because of the cost, for sure, but I want people to keep in mind here tonight, something that we really need to know as a select board is what you feel comfortable with for police coverage here in the town of Swanton. Irregardless of what happens with this proposal, because the village residents may approve it, they may not. So there might be some changes to what we're looking at right now. But we need to know what you expect and what you feel comfortable with here in the town of Swanton. And I do feel that police coverage is a big part of any community, something that we really need in this day and age, and we're going to have to address it somehow. That's important. We'd like to hear your opinion on that besides all the other issues that are involved. So without any more further ado, Brian Savage, our administrator.
Thank you very much, Earl. We have a brief PowerPoint presentation. It will look like a lot, but we'll kind of get right through it, and then we'll open up the floor for questions and comments. So, beginning with a little bit of history and background. Okay, prior to 2005, the town of Swanton depended primarily on the Vermont State Police coverage. Voters had approved a 2-year joint contract with the town of Highgate town meeting in 2005 for a total of 56 hours per week of coverage from the Franklin County Sheriff's Department. In 2012, the Select Board, acting on concerns of local residents, decided to reach out to the Swanton Village Police Department for 8 hours of coverage per day, 7 days a week, for a total of 56 hours of coverage. And that's presently the present coverage that continues today. The level of activities in 2012, broken down by the VSP and the SVPD. In 2012, the state police had handled 629 incidents, with the Swanton Village Police Department handling 426 incidents in the town for a total of 1,055. This last year, in 2023, VSP handled 517 incidents, and the Swanton PD handled 920 for a total of 1,437 incidents. The activity broken down a little bit further there was total incidents 920, traffic stops of 200, tickets issued 72, warnings 173, civil tickets 11, traffic arrests 18, arrests 43 arrests on 75 arrestable charges. There was also 27 alarms answered, welfare check 29, community outreach 30, citizens assist 34, motor vehicle complaints 38, agencies assist 52, property and home watch 60, suspicious persons circumstances 62, and directed patrols of 172. Now the contract cost, the current contract, the town is with the village for police coverage, as mentioned previously, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The cost of this service in 2023 has been $196,784. The proposed contract for 2024 will be for 10 hours per day, 7 days per week, 365 days a year. The village is not going to provide less than 10 hours per day for contracted services due to shift management of the police department. The village conducted an analysis of the overall operating budget of the police department and have determined that between the town and the village, there are 30 hours per day of coverage, 20 for the village, 10 for the town. The net operating estimated expense of the police department in 2024 is estimated at $1,404,456. As the town's portion is 33% of the hours of coverage, the amount requested for coverage by the village for 2024 for the town's protection is $475,057. That will be the amount you will see for voter approval in the warning at town meeting. So now we get into contract cost versus tax rate, and I'll try to keep this not as boring as it looks on paper. In the tax year of 2023, which we've just completed, the contract cost, as stated, was $196,784. The grand list of the town outside of the village is $5,519,736. That equates out to a tax rate of a little over 3.5 cents per $1,000 of assessed valuation. So if you're in a home or property that is worth assessed at $150,000, you are presently paying $53.40 for police protection. For 2024, the contract cost going up to $475,057. Grand list is the same, and the tax rate is 8.61 cents. You have a tax on that $150,000 of $129.15, and you will see we have the various assessed values from $150,000, $250,000, $350,000, $400,000, and so on up to $750,000. For the 2024 tax year, we're using the grand list of 2023, as the 2024 grand list will not be available until at least April 1st. The select board over the years have heard from many residents that they want more of a police presence in the community. And last fall, the select board was presented with an opportunity to have police coverage from the village for the same number of hours that the police has coverage, which is basically an officer on duty 20 hours per day, 7 days a week. There would be officers on call for the 4-hour gap to handle emergency calls for service. This would only be possible if a bond vote for a new public safety facility, which we'll talk about in a few minutes briefly, will be approved by the village voters on town meeting day and would not be in place probably until at least 2026, as additional personnel would have to be hired. The coverage would of course be at a substantial increase in the contract price, and the exact cost is difficult to estimate at this time, but we're going to give it a shot a little later on. The residents in the village have been enjoying 28-hour per day coverage for years at a substantial tax amount. In the tax year of 2024, coming up, the grand list of the village is $1,664,546. The village portion of the police budget is just under $1 million, $998,967. The tax rate is slightly over 60 cents per $1,000 assessed valuation. So you can see a $150,000 home assessed in the village is paying $900.15 for police protection, and it goes up from there at the $250, $350, and so on. Excuse me. Beginning in 2025, if the town would enter into a contract with the village of Swanton for police protection that would mirror the coverage the village presently has, up to 20 hours per day, 7 days per week, 365. Again, there would be officers on call for the remaining 4 hours per day in the event of an emergency. The size of the force would have to increase, and due to hiring procedures, the full effect of the change would not likely be seen until 2026. An estimated budget for the operations of a new police department would be $2,524,753.37 total for town and village taxpayers. Now, what does that equate out to in taxes? That amount of money, and what we do here, this is a similar formula, the same formula that we've been using for the town's share of the fire protection that we've purchased for years from the village. We use the appropriation based upon the total grand list and the town's percentage of the grand list and the versus the village's percentage. Of the grand list, the total grand list, 77% of that value of the grand list is located in the town outside of the village. The remaining village grand list is only 23% of the town's. The amount to be raised for the operations of the P.E.G would be $2,524,753. The town portion at 77% would be $1,944,060. And the village portion at 23% would be $580,693. The town tax rate and the village tax rate, the rate based on this formula is within a few cents of each other. For the town, it would be 0.3522. For the village, it would be 0.3488. So the individual taxpayer, on whether they're in the town or the village, and we can see by the next chart at the various assessed values, whether you're in the town or the village, you're paying individually for that service very close to the same amount. And that's the same formula that's been used for fire protection for the last, I'd say, it was a formula put in place back when I was on the board of the village. So that's been around for about 25 years. The next slide is a little difficult to read, but this is the area per capita police spending. What the population of each community, and there are several communities in our area, are paying per capita for police protection. It's it doesn't equate to tax rates or the amount to be raised to taxes. It's simply seen as a guide of what we're spending. Now, right to the top of the list here, I put down St. Albans City and Town. There's been reported in the press, the town of St. Albans and the city of St. Albans have entered into a new agreement that they are basically going to have one police department, the St. Albans City Police Department, at one budget, and they're going to split it right down the middle. And they're going to each pay half of it. So that equates out at the numbers that were given, about $383 per person. And then we got the various amounts for Milton, which is paying $232 per person. The Newport City is paying the highest at $467, and the lowest is for Jens at $116. Swanton, first of all, we can't take the way because we're a town village versus city town, we can't split it down the middle and use the grand list that way. It has to be done some way different. So that's why we went with that percentage. In other words, the village cannot use a town grand list number for a village expense, and a strictly town expense, they can't include the village grand list. So it works if you're city town, but it won't work if you're a town village. So in the village, we would be spending $499 per capita, and in the town, we're spending about $106, almost $107. Now, the police coverage and the building plans, several months ago, the Village of Swanton had announced plans to build a new public safety facility on land to be purchased next to the present village complex. that were front at the corner of Robin Hood Drive, Elm Street, and First Street. There was property formerly of the Carroll Concrete. The proposed building would house the police and fire departments, and the space freed up in the existing complex would be renovated to house other departments of the village. The purpose of this meeting this evening is not to discuss the particulars on that project. It is a village project, and no one here is qualified to provide information on the specifics of that project. We do know that the existing police station is inadequate, and if the town and village has mirrored coverage, the new department simply will not function in an existing facility. If the bond vote on the new facility is approved, the annual debt service on the facility will be added to the budgets of both the police and fire departments and will affect the annual budget amounts paid by the town for both departments. As previously mentioned, the expanded police coverage will only be implemented if proposed public safety facility is passed by the village voters and obviously if the town voters approve the expanded coverage. If passed, the debt service and the bond will be added to the yearly contract for both the police and the fire department. From the information we have received, the proposed debt service would be a fixed principal payment of $494,454 per year plus interest. The first several years will have the highest payment as the interest portion of the payments will be the highest. So to try to get this into a little bit more workable, the village has provided this information. The bond amount, and this is a worst case scenario, they receive no grants, nothing. They're just going to go out and finance that. They would be financing $14,833,614. The term will be 30 years. The interest rate is 4.75%. The fixed principal payment, $494,454. The payment for the first year, number one, would be the highest at $1,198,992. Of that amount, the amount allocated to the P.E.G will be $457,120.63, and the amount allocated to the fire department would be $571,171.65. The total budget with bond payment would be, police budget would be $2,981,874.20. The total fire budget with bond payment would be $1,145,096.87. So the town's share of the police budget with the bond debt service. So we've got the $2,981,874 at 77%, divided by the grand list gives you a tax rate of 0.4160. The town share of the fire budget with the bond payment, again, the total fire budget of $1,145,096. 77% of that is the $881,724 divided by the grand list of the town, comes out to a tax rate of just under 16 cents per thousand. So we have assessed valuations here, and I started with a $250,000 assessed valuation. So if you had property assessed at $250,000, you would have a police tax of $1,024, and your fire tax would be $399.25, and then the rates would go up accordingly by the amount of the assessed valuation. If the village vote bond, if the bond vote for the village should fail, the plans for mirrored coverage are off the table for an unspecified amount of time. We don't know what the village would do at that point, but we do know that we cannot expand the police coverage in the police department in the facility that they're in. So, thank you for your attention, and now we're going to open up to questions and comments. I'll turn it back over to her.
All right, thank you, Brian. I just want to let everybody know that I'm really happy we have a crowd here. This is the biggest crowd I've seen in a long time for a town issue, and I really appreciate people coming out. It's very important for this board to hear from people on a lot of issues, and I'm glad you're here tonight. I want to give everybody a chance to express their opinions and ask questions if they have them. We'll try to answer them as best we can. And I'd like to do it in a respectful, civil way, because this is a very important issue. And before I give anybody a chance to talk twice, I want to make sure that everybody has an first. So, and I'll get Al, you be first, but I want people to state their name, and we would like to know if you live in the town or the village. So Al, go ahead.
Al Letourneau.
You want to use this?
Yeah. Al Letourneau, town and village. I'm voting no. We can't afford it. What we should be working on is bringing businesses in here to generate income. Get that started first before we even think about spending any more money. We got properties out there that are just sitting there, the Riviera, the parking lot across the street. There's money that can be made right there. We're just sitting on it. Do you have a comment?
How do you feel about police coverage, though? That's one of the issues I'd like
Police
to...
coverage, we don't need it in the town. We're all set the way it is, okay? I voted no, that means no.
Well, I don't know if he's But I want to clarify this. We're not going to be voting on any bond in the town. That would only be the village residents. But you can vote no on the amount of money we are asking for police coverage in the town. That'll be a separate article at the town meeting. It always has been and will continue to be. So you can vote no on that. No, we got other people. Who else wants to have a comment?
I just have a question. You show that 2023 is, sorry, my name is Karen Bradman, town.
Okay.
You show $196,000 for 2023, and the proposed for 2024 is $475,000, like 2.5 times. Is that because the new municipal center in the village cost would be incorporated into that 475? Because that would be only for 2 hours more per day. So I'm wondering why it's gone 2.5.
No, none of this is happening right now. And what's happened is actually the police department has had to hire on a full-time administrator, I guess. So their costs off. If you look at the police budget, the whole total police budget, it's up considerably compared to what it was a year ago. In fact, they actually ended up with a sizable deficit last year. That is why we're getting, most of the increase is coming from that, not necessarily the 2 extra hours. I know there is some extra cost there, but it's just because the entire police budget has increased because of at least one position, I believe, maybe two positions that we would have filled, and they're getting hit like just everybody else. I think their insurance is up 12–15%, and that's happening. So no, not right now. There's no money going for any building at this present time. It's just going for the police budget.
Mr. Chair, I think another big increase was the dispatch.
It was dispatch.
Oh yeah, there's a change in the dispatch service and that added to it too. Did that answer your question?
I'm just kind of wondering why it went up 2.5 times the amount for 2023 with only 2 more hours of daily coverage.
The other thing that has changed, the formula has changed. They're saying that between the town and the village, there's 20 hours of coverage for the village, 10 for the town, so the town is basically getting billed 1/3 of the budget. I don't think it was done that way before. And, you know, it's just sort of the reality is that police protection is not gonna be real cheap. The more you get, the more it's gonna cost. Yes, sir.
Casey Stutton, I live in town.
Yep.
Did we know about these, extra people that were hired before they were hired, so we knew we have to pay more money?
Well, we don't really have any say in that because it is the village police department. They run it day-to-day stuff. So, no, basically, you know, there is a need, apparently there's a need for them, and I think there is. If you look at the slides here, the amount of incidents they've been dealing with, and some of these have involved drugs, so they've been an extensive amount of time put into it. There's quite a few warrants that they serve.
We got a lot more drugs in this town too than we had 10 years ago.
But I want to get back, and I forgot to ask the lady there. How do you feel about, do you feel police coverage is needed in the town?
I do.
Okay. What do you feel, sir?
Well, I feel if we spend more money, we should get this all cleared up.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Ashley Rocks, and I live in the town, and I might be in the minority here, but I'm just curious how much we pay for Vermont State Police coverage, and what our price would be if we just dropped Swanton Police coverage altogether.
Well, we don't pay anything out of town property taxes for Vermont State Police coverage. You pay taxes to the state. It's one of the highest tax states in the country, so you're paying for it that way. If we drop the Swanton Village Police coverage, what were you saying?
I'm just curious, you know, like what the impact on our taxes if we just drop them completely versus, you know, obviously we wouldn't have to fund that. I mean, it's a huge increase, and personally, where I live, I don't see police presence at all, so, I mean, I'm not getting any benefit from paying these taxes.
Okay, I can tell you how much you would save, basically that 0.0825 off the tax rate, so if you had a 150, we'll say 150,000 times 8, it is what, $128.
Right, so we would essentially not owe them anything, we'd be out of it.
Yes,
Okay.
we would be out of it, and, you know, you'd have to rely strictly on Vermont State Police coverage, and, you know, their department is short of people, you know, the wait times, especially for non-emergencies, is gonna be considerable.
I do have one more quick question, because I paid my tax bill from last year, and it said that highway and police coverage is 0.2667 for my tax rate, but you guys showed a different number up there. So I'm just wondering what the difference is.
The difference is we're combining the highway budget and the police coverage, adding it all together, and it comes up with that tax rate.
Look, on my tax bill, it says highway/police, and my tax rate is 0.2667.
Yes, because they're together, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's because we've added the amount for the highway department budget and the police budget together, because that's voted separately by town residents.
Gotcha.
So it's combined, that's why. And we had it broke out here what the actual tax rate for the police was.
Okay, thank you.
Let's have some more questions. Okay, I'll get to you.
Hi, my name's Alan Norris. I live in the town. There's just some things here in these numbers that just, I can't really grasp right now. But it's like, you're talking about going from 20 hours for the village and then 10 hours, and then all this cost associated, enveloped in all these buildings, enveloped in all of this unknown administrative or any other cost. It just seems like, you know, the town then is kind of like contributing, unless I got this wrong, 77% to get 1/3% of the coverage. That doesn't really add up. It seems to me like we're just being sucked in here as a town to help buy all this real estate, buildings, administrative. And it's a significant amount of money. And has, you know, the other thing I could ask is, okay, so we're paying 77%, they're paying 23%. They're getting 2/3 of the coverage, it's almost reverse of the coverage. We've got more square miles to cover as far as the town, so how are we ever gonna see anybody with all of the amount of travel they have to do versus the town where they just ride up and down the road? Very little amount of area that they have to cover versus the town, which is huge. And the other thing is, we have no say in anything. It's like, okay, we're paying 77%, do we get any say in what goes on in that administrative building? And these numbers just are appalling in terms of how much of an increase this is gonna be for everybody, for what we're garnering from it. Has there been any other alternatives to go out and find any other bids, the sheriff's department, anything else? I mean, the town just, the village just seems like they're raising their cost, the point over there about going from the amount it was for extra 2 hours. Well, that's only 20%. So you're talking about 20%, it went up over 100% in order to get that. So where's this money all going? How is it all? I get the fact that it's their cost, I get it. But just taking their cost verbatim and saying, hey, just divide it amongst the town, that's the way it goes, doesn't add up to me.
Well, at the present time, we're not voting on that, but we, this is really talking about police coverage, and how do you feel? If you don't feel we need police coverage, then, all the people in town can vote no.
Didn't say that. I
Okay.
didn't say we didn't need.
All right. So you're talking about another issue, and that's a little bit tougher issue, because, it's a town, and there's a village. The village has always had the police department, and the reality of that is, if you lived in the village, you would be paying that $1,100 or $1,200, you're paying it right now, to have full-time police coverage. So, wow, 20 hours, 7 days a week, 4 hours on call, okay. But that's what's happening right now in the village. So if the police department is increased, and they'd have to increase officers in order to do this mirror coverage, the cost of the budget's gonna go up considerably. And then, of course, you've got, the other issue is the bond payment. But if the village is gonna bring a bond proposal before the voters, if they approve it, then we're gonna have to make a decision whether we're gonna stay with that kind of coverage, because if people want coverage in the town, we're gonna have to find it. Then maybe at that point in time, we can start looking for some other options, but there's not very many out there, okay? And, you say the sheriff's department, but there's a lot of issues with the sheriff's departments right now, and, how reliable that would be, I don't know. So the options for other coverage aren't great.
But you call it mirroring, I don't see it mirroring based on the percentages. Mirroring would be 50-50.
That, you're talking about paying for it. We're talking about coverage, okay? But I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Right. Yeah.
Once you pay for it, you should be on the receiving end of the coverage.
And that was something that we may have to continue discussions with the village trustees about how to make this more sellable for the whole community. I won't argue that point.
I mean, if you're gonna spend that kind of money, what would it take to, talking about buildings that are available and anything else, what would it take to actually create a police department in the town and hire 2 officers? I mean, that'd be a heck of a lot cheaper than, I don't know what it would be. I'm just saying, you've gotta look at all these avenues before you throw.
We certainly will. We're gonna have to wait and see what happens with this bond proposal
I'm a little
first.
confused. It's
Yeah.
almost like we're talking about coverage of something that may never, not even happen. Is that what we're saying?
This bond proposal might not happen, but no, I think this comes right to the heart of the issue. What you're bringing up right now is, what kind of coverage do you want? Do we need more coverage in town? If we do,
We don't have any now, so.
technically we do.
Well, you do, but,
Be the same.
okay, we're the same.
Okay, we're getting out of line here, and we did have thank you. But do you feel we need to have some kind of police protection in the town that we have control over, even though we don't, but at least we know we're gonna get those many hours? Do you feel police protection is important?
obviously.
Okay,
But
all right,
again, it seems like it's more of an on-call basis.
yeah, okay. Yes, we had,
Raymond Carter, and I live in the town. One thing that has been looked at is the efficacy of police coverage. It's not something that's been discussed. I would love to see the statistics, and I'm sure that you don't have them off the top of your head, but real crimes, not traffic tickets, not, all that stuff. Thefts, break-ins. How many are solved in the town versus how many are solved in the village with this 20 hours of protection? Are they getting a bang for that buck? Or are we all gonna start spending, on average, let's face it, in the town, the average is about $350,000. So we're talking about $1,500 per household for them to issue more speeding tickets. Is that what we wanna spend our money on? I believe we should have some coverage, but I think the 8 that we have now, during the peak hours, that when most incidents occur, because you can obviously see it on the chart, the state police cover the off hours, and they've got less than we have during those 8. Why did we even try to jump to 10 this year? Why wasn't 8 proposed again, and see what that would cost? Why did there automatically have to be an increase?
it had.
Why is growth always the goal?
Yeah. Part of the hour, the hours changed because of the scheduling or whatever they do, what's that?
Shift management.
Shift management's what we've been told, okay?
So could we ask for just 8?
No.
That's not enough, so
No.
maybe we should, and you said you might be able to shop elsewhere. If we're not, as a consumer, I buy what I want, not just what's handed to me.
Okay.
I like options.
But you do feel we need some.
I don't think we need any more than the 8 we have now,
Okay. All right.
because I've had a break-in, about 8 years ago, it was covered by the state police. Once a year, I get a letter. Are your firearms still missing? That's all that ever came out of it. Once a year, I get a letter. And if I don't answer it, they'll call me and ask me if they're still missing. But that's all I got out of it. Nobody could be bothered to come take my statement. I had to go to the station, and nobody could be bothered to answer the door for half an hour to take that statement. And I don't think we're gonna wind up with any better coverage from the village. It's just, it's how police departments work. It's not a big priority to them. The break-in's done, nobody's there, it's not a priority, nobody can come.
Well, there were quite a few incidents in the town last year. Some of them did involve, other than speeding, there were some drug arrests in the town, heroin. So there are issues out there, and there's some break-ins that they've been involved with, but they're not as easy to, yeah,
The efficacy
Yeah.
of that, because it hasn't been discussed.
yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
Just have one thing to say in report to what you just said about
Whoop,
coverage.
here, you better take it, I can't hear you.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Brian DeRocher. I'm from town.
Thank you.
I don't really pay attention to that too much. I should pay attention a little bit more, but, we've had a couple of incidents, just on the border where we live, like it's like right on the border. Like we call, don't show up,
Who'd you call?
Swanton Town
What time?
around the time that it was needed.
Yeah, but what time was that? Yeah, if,
5 to 8.
okay, you called after 5 p.m.
Yes. And we were referred to call the Vermont State Police. There was another. Yeah, there was somebody breaking into our house.
It was legit
So-
emergency. Someone was breaking into my house and we were told to call state police.
And the line is literally right across the road.
We live on Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And then across the street, probably like a year or so later before that, there was another incident where our next door neighbor's car got stolen and they wouldn't even come out. All the calls to the same people. Yeah, the Vermont State Police.
Yeah, well, I don't have an answer for that. I know that if it's not within the hours that the town is contracted for, then you will have to call the Vermont State Police.
So that's, I don't see it. It's a substantial amount for, they sit in 2 spots normally.
All right, so I'll go back to the question. Do you feel that we should have some police coverage here in Swanton other than the Vermont State Police?
I'd be okay with the Vermont State Police.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Thank you, Al. There must be some other people, I'm sure.
Earl, we have a couple online questions.
Okay, you got a couple online questions? You want to read them off? Whoops.
Mouse word.
So we have 2.
We have 2 online questions. Dylan DuPont in the town. My question is, why should the town be on the hook for paying for more police coverage due when we do not receive the adequate police coverage we are paying for currently? How will the governing party of the town assure the voters of the town they will receive the adequate coverage, and being that it's a long-term contract, how will police department be held responsible for fulfilling these obligations that the town is paying for?
Good question. You want to answer it, Christina?
Nope. And there's another one after.
Well, I've been a big part of this discussion here tonight is, and I know that's an issue out there, people feel that way. There's other people that seem to feel that the coverage is reasonable, you know, and we're on the hook for it. I guess, we're not on the hook for anything right now. Don't want people to get too excited here because nothing's been voted on. And then anything that, if the town was to do that contract, it would have to be voter approved. And, you know, at the cost that's being proposed right now, I don't see that happening. So we're gonna have to look at all the alternatives, but I really think that in the long run, if we can work out something with the village, we're gonna be better off than going separate ways. And, you know, maybe when the police department was first formed, the town and the village should have been together then. And now we're at this situation, because the reality is the village can't afford to do this without the town, and if the town goes somewhere else, we might be spending more money. We don't know yet, okay? So that's, you know, we got some things to work on, that's for sure.
Mr. Chair, I think part of his question, I don't need that, I got a big mouth. I think part of his question was, how do we hold the police department accountable for the services that they're providing? Because I think from what I gathered from the question, he's not seeing that return. So going forward, how do we govern that?
Yeah. When they're speaking, I will get to you. When you're speaking about governance, there was a proposal that the village did bring with this proposal too about more participation by the town in the decision-making process for the Swanton Village Police. Even though the day-to-day management would still be under the village manager and, you know, we wouldn't really have, I don't know if we'd have veto say in it, but we would have a lot more say in it than we have now. But it would still be the Swanton Village Police Department.
Mr. Chair, that was for the 24/7, correct?
Yes,
And I think the question that was online was actually talking about current as well. And I mean, one of the things we do is we get a monthly report and we discuss issues at the board meetings, correct?
Yes, yes, they do.
And we have someone who's appointed to work with the police department if there's issues that are brought up to make sure we're getting what is contracted for. That's current, and then you talked about what would be in the future. Just want to clarify that.
I gotta go back to the gentleman over there, and I will get to you.
Tim Skiff, I live in the town. I think what the guy online was trying to say, and you didn't answer his question fully, and the other guy did, is you're not getting the bang for your buck. What you're paying for, you ain't getting the service that you used to. There used to be a cop on our street at least once a day. I haven't seen one in a year. So the money you're paying, you ain't getting much service out of it, I'm afraid. Customer service, I mean, go to Walmart and complain at Walmart and get better customer service.
What do you feel about police coverage, though?
8 hours a day is plenty.
All right,
If we pay any more, we're wasting the money, we're spending now, we ain't getting service.
yes, sir.
My name's Mo Gagne, I live in town. I almost didn't come here because I went to the food store today and I'm coming down my road. I'm on the outskirts and I live off Bushy. And a lot of you folks, I feel my troubles are tricky. This gentleman here, you get broken into, that's absurdity. My issue is speeding. Excessive speed on Bushy Road is absurd. I mean, I don't even let people mow my lawn next to that road. And do we need more police officers? I don't know if we need more, but for 70% of the cost is absurdity. We need to like recalculate that. And if the town is doing 50-50, maybe that's a little more reasonable. But to get away from the money, we need police coverage. I've talked to the town, Swanton, come by. I get them once in a while in my shore. I said, across from I've talked to the state police numerous times. They just show up here. Don't come in the middle of the day. Come during, a time when people are driving 80 or 90 miles an hour down Bushy Road. I dare one of you folks to mow the lawn. I've had my hat mow off, 2 kids driving 80, 90 miles an hour, racing. A girl almost run me off on my mower. She was texting. I don't think we don't need more. I'm not sure if we need more, but we need police that are allocating their time in the town to do it better. That's what.
Well, that's one of the problems with the coverage that we have right now, because it's only going to be a certain time. That makes it a little bit more difficult. You see, we got anybody else here? Oh, we got another hand up. I'll get back to you, Al, but as I said, I want to give everybody a chance. Okay.
Heath McAllister, town. Just doing the quick math on it, looked like it was like, currently we're paying roughly $70 an hour. What it seems like, and it looks like the number's gonna go up to 130. 130 bucks an hour, when you break it down like that, it doesn't sound ridiculous to me. I definitely think we need the police coverage. Now, that's not going forward, that's just talking the 2023 to 2024 in the 10 hours. I understand the 10 hours is out of our hands. I do think we should probably looking at the other alternatives, be it, I would love to see the town, the village get together, make it work, but I do think you guys have the duty to shop around.
Yeah, I move. Somebody over. Well, you already spoke once, so I don't know if there's anybody else. Yes.
Jennifer Fitzsimmons, I would like to see police coverage on our road. We're on 105, I've never seen a SWAT cop, ever. I've been here 25 years. I have pay a large amount, you need to have coverage.
Now, do
If it's an
you,
accident, you don't see a cop much there. VSP comes, and it's been right during the times. VSP's always there. Sheriff's always there.
you feel that you want to see police coverage then?
Well,
If you want to see it, but you.
I want to see coverage, but also if I'm so close to the state, and they're coming to take care of me all the time, I think VSP people, that is a very large amount.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna hire new people, you're gonna have to get more cars, I mean, you can't sit in the village at the office and think you're gonna be at 105 in 10 minutes, because you're not gonna be there. It's not gonna happen.
All right, Carol?
I'm Carol Hubbard. I live in town. I live near exit 20, so I'm in the southern part of the town, and I'm with Jennifer. At home, I feel like we have coverage. The state police are around all the time, the sheriff, we see everybody. In my neighborhood, there's a lot of action. There's always stuff going on. I feel safe at home, but I have a place out on the hog in the summertime. The coverage out there is off. You don't see anybody ever. Right. Okay. Doing anything.
Yeah, with the 5 to 1 time slot, they might be going through at 10 to 11 o'clock at night when you're sleeping, you know, I'm not saying, I'm sure they've been on them roads, but, you know, it's just not, it's not a visible presence, that's the problem.
I guess I'm conflicted because I don't know that I want more or need more, or is the status quo okay? I can't make up my own mind.
But you do feel it's a needed to have police?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a loaded question.
Got one in the back. I'll get you, yeah, wait.
I will get you.
Go ahead. Yes.
Hi, I'm Michelle Nordberg. I live in the town. I live in Swanton Town. I feel like what you want to hear is that we need coverage. We live in a society where I don't think anybody's going to say we don't need police. They exist. We value them. But do we value them at 200% increase for the same coverage, or 240% for two extra hours, is a big different question than the one you keep asking from everyone. So the answer should be a resounding, yes, we need coverage. I'm nearly run over every day I go for a walk on the Plum Shore, and I've never seen a police officer, probably because it's not during the hours of their service that they're providing, but that's when I'm there. So I'd like them to be there when I need them, but they're not. So the question is also multifaceted. They have to be forecasting. All of us have to consider all of the other tax increases that are to come with the state property tax increases, the potential municipal building. We have other increases, school taxes, new roofs. I mean, this is not just one question and one answer. So it cannot be answered with in a silo. It has to be comprehensively on the future tax effects that we're going to be feeling, not just today, not just on this bill, and not just on the next tax bill that's going to come. So I encourage everybody to think about how this is going to compound year after year. And we're not even talking about particular market assessments on our properties that could happen. And so if the village is having trouble paying when I vote no on this, then I would encourage them to, maybe that is the time or the motivation they need to actually consider a merger so we have less overhead and kind of combine the multiple governments in the town and the village. I don't know if that's the catalyst or not. But to answer the question at the table today, the answer for me is, yes, we need coverage, but not at this price. And I would encourage the board to have fiscal responsibility to force a negotiation. Every contract can be negotiated. They can walk away, as can you, and we do not need it for 8 hours during times we don't see them at this price. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for the comments, well said, well said. I think that's probably the heart of the issue, and but that's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. But I believe we need to work in that direction. I appreciate your comments very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Just hand over here.
Okay, yes.
Excuse me, Sean Howe, I live in the town. I guess my first thought is, why is there no representative from the police department here?
Because we wanted this to be a discussion with the town residents about police coverage. That is why they're not here.
But my questions could have been answered by somebody from the department about efficacy.
Okay, all right, well, so I'll get to that, but I understand what you're saying, but I got a couple of sheets you can take home with you. You're gonna see some statistics and some numbers.
I mean, to review that, I mean, it makes no sense not to have a representative from the police department here. 0 cents. 0. And number two is, I don't think it's necessarily about more coverage or less coverage. What it's about is the current coverage and how it's managed, right? So I see SWAT cops up on Morse's line 2 or 3 times a week. How is that? How are we benefiting from that, right? My other thought is, I came here with the intention of hearing more about this $20 million state-of-the-art new municipal complex. We're not talking about that. Police coverage and a new building aren't mutually exclusive. Okay? So I'm not hearing anything about the proposal of the new building.
I understand what you're saying, but that's not gonna be warned for town residents to vote on. You have the opportunity to go to the village, they still have open houses scheduled, to see the facility and then ask questions specifically about that project. That project is not being brought forward by the town, it's being brought forward by the village. So if you want more information on that, that's the place to get it. And maybe we made a mistake by keeping, a representative from the police out of here, but we thought it was more important to have this discussion as a group, how we felt about it. And that was our decision, so you can blame us for that.
And I would just add to what she was saying earlier, is this is the worst possible time to talk about huge, substantial increases in taxes. And I think people need to understand this. At the state level, we're looking at a proposal almost 20% increase in property tax. 20%. Find out today that we're on the hook for EB5. $16.5 million taxpayers are on the hook for. In addition to more town tax. In the climate of our society, of our community, with cost of living, we're just not being fiscally responsible. I feel it's reckless.
Well, that we're very well aware of. And, we're trying to do the best we can, and we want to make sure that we address all the needs of the community and try to do it in an affordable way. And I'm not going to argue with anybody that the proposal that's brought before us is really not affordable. But we still need police coverage. So we got to work out something here in the future. We have. Yeah. Yep.
I'm missing the big picture. I don't think we can afford more police coverage. $1,000 a year for the town. I feel like the village is planning out what the town's gonna have to spend. We don't even get to vote on this $20 million building, but we're gonna help pay for it. Right? Sorry, I just had to throw that in.
Oh, no, that's a fair question. That's a very fair question, and people need to understand that the only way the town is going to pay for that is if the town voters agree to a contract with the village. Okay? You need to keep that in mind. And I don't even know what the select board's going to do. If the village votes for that and we don't vote to stay with police coverage with the village, we're not going to pay for any of it. There was another gentleman down there. Yes. David?
Dave Winchester, Village. I agree with most of you folks here, and I've been confused about why we need to be divided about these things and why the bill corrected a long time ago, the one scenario, consolidation, what we name it, so that everybody had equal say over all this stuff, and everybody kind of could understand it. The fact that one side could do something to affect the taxes of the other side has no voting say, just none of that seems fair. I understand that. I can understand police cars up on Morris's line. That is because there is a couple of the police cars that are owned by the federal government, but they're tagged in the village P.E.G land phones, but they're paid for by the federal government, something called Stone Garden, is that correct? Correct. So it's confusing to see cars sitting there. We can't use them for local police force use. They're paid for, but even though they got our tags on them, and it's really, you know, people don't understand it. I didn't understand it just recently. I sat down with Matt and talked about the differences between who's paying for what. It's very confusing. And I think we really need to do a lot more homework. And so for police coverage, what's the difference between being on call and patrol calls? So what do we have now for the town? And do we pay for the sheriff's department through state taxes?
No.
State taxes are
No.
sheriff and state police, right?
No, we have a contract with the village.
The town has the contract.
Yes, with the village. That was approved by the voters last year.
No, the sheriff's, not the village.
She's asking the sheriff.
We do not. Sheriff.
We don't have.
Oh, no, we don't have no contract with the sheriff, no.
That's a state tax thing, same as state police, right? So what you see in state, when the town bill is just one key.
You got a question?
But does anybody know the difference between patrol costs and on-call costs? Is there a difference between, and what we have for town versus?
He's asking you a question.
Are you done, David?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess, thank you for the information, and what question did he ask?
He was still talking.
Well, they got somebody on Zoom too. Wait a minute, what was the question? Hold on a minute.
Do we know a difference between on-cost coverage and patrol coverage? So versus driving around versus when somebody has something out in town, they'll come and respond. And it is confusing because the village map is this little category, and there's a lot of people that think that they're in the village, that they're in the town, and they're not being covered by the village PD. So, for example, somebody breaks into the railroad station. A lot of people think that's the village, but that's the town.
Oh, there's down there.
And that's happened quite often, and they call, and they're like, well, we can't help you, we're gonna be redirected to the state police have to come all the way over. And it seems kind of ridiculous that they're right there, but, and that is where some of the crossover, where it's beneficial that we all have a say, and we all kind of share in it. But, you know, some parts probably only need to be on call, some parts need to be controlled. And we don't really have a good idea of what costs more or less. And what kind of coverage do we have for the town? Is that patrol?
Right now, yes, it's from 5 to 1 a.m. The new proposal would be from 4 to 2.
8 hours a day, they travel around.
Well, I don't know, you know, I guess
Jump in on that. I just recently rode with them, okay? It is not in the car 3 hours driving around Swanton. There is tons of paperwork for every one of those things you see that happens. There's probably 8 to 10 times the amount of time spent doing the paperwork.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yes, I actually participated, had to sit in the car, so I didn't get to see it all, but during a drug bust. And this was about 8 at night. And they get out to shift supposedly at 1 or 2 in the morning. They were planning at least 5 in the morning before they were finished dealing with all the paperwork they had to do for that one incident. So the whole time from 8 at night till 5 or 6 in the morning, they're not gonna be on Hog Island. They're not gonna be up on French Hill. They're doing the paperwork for the drug bust they did. And then some of their time, if they have a drug bust, they have to go to the court, you know? And that's time that's spent away from driving around the road. I'd love to see, I live on the Long Shore Road. Nice straight speed strip right there. I'd love to see them there all the time. Not gonna happen when you only have 1 police on shift for the hours that we do, 8 now and 10 if the voters pass what's happening in March. But there's a lot of time spent just doing all the paperwork that's required.
So I live in the village on Spring Street. I can guarantee you, Speedway, it's right through Spring Street. There's no shortage of speeding going on in Village Island. It's just a rampant problem everywhere. So police off and on, yeah. But, you know, I do understand it just with Matt, I mean, so the narcotic issues and the other complex things they're dealing with now. I mean, the state places people among communities now, and those communities have to somehow absorb some of the complexities with certain individuals being placed back in communities. And we do have our fair share of those. And they impact the crime rate based on density. So I think there's a fair share of crime out in town, sure. But I also think there's more in the condensed area zone, so to speak. So what's the best coverage balance? And so somebody's saying they see state police if they live closer to state police because they're way out in West Swanton. Swanton geographically is bigger than St. Albans from one end of it to the other. And we all know the complexity of reaching one end of it to the other at certain times of day, trying to get across the bridge and through downtown. Where other communities don't have those issues. So there definitely is a difference between what it costs to cover different zones, for sure. And got a good idea of that, sitting down with Matt, as you were saying, spending hours and talking with them about the complexity of what's the balance. But you're right. You have something complex like a drug arrest that happens, you're on that for who knows how many days doing paperwork, let alone going to the courthouse. And then watching those people get back out the next day.
All right, Dave, what's your point, and how do you feel that police coverage needs to be?
Additional.
I think of the options that we have, we're better with the local option versus some of the outer options.
Okay.
And from what my understanding is, the state police are really short of people. Sheriff's Department is short of people and has unique issues at the moment. St. Albans has turned down their contracts and now have expanded city and town, and they've merged together and finally that they feel like they just need to be one. So there is something to benefit everybody by sharing in this. But competing against it, I don't think there's a lot of options. Just because there's a shortage of these people who want to provide the types of job or service to us.
That is true, David, and appreciate your comments. Now, you have somebody on the Zoom?
I have 3 questions on here. I will read the questions and you could answer after. Amy Fletcher in Swanton Town. I don't see any benefit of having the village PD now. Why pay for more? I do not even see them outside of the village. I feel it is a complete waste of money as it stands. We have no say in what they do. They are arbitrarily jacked up on the price as they see fit. There is no provision for what we pay for. If they can't find enough officers, there's a shortage of police officers all around. I am not interested in seeing the village PD take our hard-earned money for nothing. Mary Stanley. The town of Swanton needs additional hours of police coverage. We are virtually none at this time. The town of Swanton should have around-the-clock coverage for the amount of money being proposed. If we build a new building, increase the number of hours, the PD is supporting the town and the village. How do you expect to find qualified police officers to work for Swanton? There are large cities and towns, even the Vermont State Police, who can't hire qualified new hires. Justina Jeanette, the town. If we want to continue to put money into this community and build beautiful playgrounds, rec paths, new rec facilities, if we want to put the money into our library and parks and encourage folks to use the wildlife and refuge in our lake, we have to put our money into our police force and create a safe and sustainable community. This is not the same community I moved into 15 years ago, and it will be vastly different in 5 years. Our police department is overwhelmed with drugs and abuse, and supporting the community emergency calls and increased support for school safety. I have long been uncomfortable with the lesser service the town receives, and I'm so pleased to see this opportunity to increase the coverage. Hoping to see the police, fire, and village officials get the space and staffing they need, and the coverage the village and town has the growth to require. My full support. Another question was, they would like to know all board members' opinion on this. Do you support full-time police coverage? Start with Earl.
Well, I would like to hold that, a board opinion probably till the end. But those comments there, they're comments and not questions. There were people that said we don't need it, but there was other ones that said we really need it. So I appreciate their comments.
I believe the first comment, or one of the comments they wrote about Swanton not having enough police, or not able to get enough police officers. Okay, Swanton, according to Chief Sullivan, Swanton is the only department in the state that is at its full authorized strength.
Wow.
So that, they actually have a waiting list for applicants.
Okay, we had a gentleman right there, yes.
My name is Rick Kirk from the town. Question I have, or the comment I have relates to the efficacy question. You're asking people to spend quite a bit more money, but if that place gets broken into or I get attacked, if I spend $1,000 more a year, I don't want to be told to call the state police. And I think you got to, when you're asking people to vote on police, you've got to make them aware that there's certain things that they can't do or won't do. And if you're asking me to spend more money, then I want to know what they won't do and some of the things that they will do. And I mean, everybody wants more police if they can afford it, but, you know, we'll have concern about it. I mean, I'm retired, fixed income, but that's my comment, is I would favor more police, but for me to vote on that, I've heard comments here that they break in your house, they're gonna tell me to call the state. I don't wanna hear that. Just spend $1,000 more a year. I don't wanna hear that.
Well, if we went to this $1,000 a year, then when you call the village, they'd have to go because it's mere, we get the same coverage.
I'm just saying, there's gotta be other stuff that's not covered and certain things in coverage. I mean, drugs are becoming a significant issue in all the towns. And I think that's only gonna get worse.
Well, I appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chair, can I clarify one thing?
Yes.
Correct me here if I'm wrong, folks, but I think when you're calling the village police for an emergency, you should be dialing 911, and that gets to a dispatcher who knows, like if you're in the town, what hours where the town is being covered by the village police. So I would encourage you, if it's an emergency, to be dialing 911, not looking up the village police, calling them, and then they say, well, you're in the town, call the Vermont State Police. So I just want that clarification. If I'm wrong, tell me, but I think 911 is the way to go if it's an emergency. And that's what we pay the dispatcher to sort out, not to get that answer, sir, that you said about call the state police. You should be dialing 911 if it's an emergency. Just want to clarify that, Earl.
Thank you, Joe, because that is true, and Brian's got a comment on it.
I'll just explain a little bit about the dispatch. Up until the first of this year, Swanton Police was dispatched through the Vermont State Police. There was some issues with that. It has been a long-standing issue, not only with Swanton, but throughout the entire state. And I'm not sure the inner workings of it, if the state decided they're going to start charging for dispatch or exactly what happened. But on January 1st, Swanton Police is dispatched by St. Albans Central Dispatch, the St. Albans City Police. As is the Swanton Fire Department, as the fire department has been for a lot of years now. And Missisquoi Rescue has also gone back to Central Dispatch. Joel is correct. If it's an emergency, dial 911. That'll get picked up by one of the answering points in the state, but one of those points happens to be St. Albans Central Dispatch. So it's very possible if there's it'll go to whatever open phone line in one of those dispatch centers or PSAPs. It'll go into whatever center is available. They will direct it to the dispatcher to direct the Swanton Police or Swanton Fire, whoever. For efficiency on a multi-agency response, that would include police, fire, and rescue. Having them all with one dispatcher is much more efficient. It's faster, and I think it's costing more money for dispatch at Swanton PD. But I think in the long run, especially in a multi-agency situation. It's much more efficient and safer. Thank you.
Okay, we had, yes, there was, I think, okay, Gordon, go ahead.
Hi, Gordon Winters, I live in the town. Earl, could you just explain you had said earlier, people have said about if the village approves the building and they build a $20 million building, but we vote no in the town for the police coverage, that doesn't affect us in any way, we're not paying for that. But doesn't the police budget ultimately flow down to a town resident?
No. The only thing that we would pay for would be the additional bond payment in the fire department. The police department, if we don't have a contract with the village for police coverage, we're not paying for it.
So I always assumed that as their budget grew, which it will grow substantially, I assume if they build this new building, that ultimately we would pay some of that through our tax rate, is that not?
No. They would fall, all the responsibility of that bond will be with the village residents, even if we partner with them. But if we don't, then they're responsible for all of it. They're gonna have to pay that portion of the bond themselves. So which would have a substantial impact on the village tax rate.
If we stay with the status quo, means if it's voted in 2024 in March for the 10 hours, and they approve the building, then in 25 or 26, the police budget would go up.
Yes.
For the building, so I think that's part of what you're asking.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Yes, right now, the village charges the police department so much for their use of the rooms that they use. And there will be a charge for paying down the bond service debt, that some of that would get pushed to the town in the annual contract if we're doing 8 or the 10 hours that we're doing right now, and it'd be substantially higher if we went to the 24/7. I think that's.
Even if we kept it the same?
Even if we kept it the same, the cost, there would be an increase in cost to the.
Yes, that's right. But I'm assuming that people in the town are gonna vote no. So if you vote no, then we got no cost. But if we do a contract again with the village, if this bond passes, the cost of that bond is gonna be in our coverage. So if it's 400,000 now, this year, whatever it is, it'll probably go up another 50, 60,000, just because that's part of the operating expense now of the police department. But if we're not getting services from them, then we're not paying any of it. Yes.
Earl, Sandy Du Bois, town.
Yep.
We participated in one of the open houses Sunday. Very well done. And yes, the police need more space. But we were told by the town board and the chief and Bill Chief that if this increase, the 2-hour increase and the increase that they're asking for from the town, if that does not pass, they cannot move forward. If they cannot move forward, that means we're paying a substantial amount for the new building. And then, as you said, you corrected yourself, in the future, 1 or 2 years down the road, and that building is sitting there, we, as a town, are obviously going to be paying more because of the bond.
Yes.
So this is just step one. This is just step one in what we're being asked to provide. Only the start. And Gordon is right. So I think people have to think on the police coverage. We've lived just on the Swanton side of Monument Road for 30 plus years. I can count on one hand and have fingers left over, the times that I have seen a police officer in the area. Now, I know policing has changed. Community policing does not exist anymore in our world, in our generations that I'm looking at here. Now it's a crisis management. That's what they're doing. And then they have to document for hours. So it's not the kind of police coverage that we are hoping to have, because it doesn't exist anymore.
Well, thank you for your comments, and you're right about that. Now, we did have Siobhan. What?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Go
so,
ahead. You did have your hand up.
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
So just to like set the scene here, 2024, for the village vote will be for the facility, that's correct, right? Or, yeah, this March coming up, right?
Yep.
You guys will just be looking at, sorry, Siobhan Cooper Village. You guys will be just looking at the 10-hour, and the village police are not interested in keeping it at 8. They said 10 or nothing, or just 10, period.
Good question.
I'll let Brian give you the details on that 10, because he understands it better than I do.
They, for shift management purposes, to manage those shifts and their schedules of their officers, they want everybody on a 10-hour shift. And so you can't have somebody at 10 hours, then an 8-hour, and so that they came to the board and said, we'll do the coverage, but we're no longer going to do an 8-hour shift. It's going to be 10 hours.
That makes sense, it makes sense to do that for scheduling, because that works out better for their, officers that need to have the normalcy of life and et cetera. So in 2025 is the budget vote that you're talking about now for the 24/7, 27 coverage, correct?
Yes.
I know that, for those that don't know, Earl had went and spoken with Heidi back in December about possibly splitting that. I keep calling it 27 coverage because it's 24 hours is on call, but they would split the 10 hours with Highgate and 10 hours with Swanton Town. Has there been any more discussion about that?
No, not, Highgate and a lot of communities are in the same situation we are in, as far as police coverage is concerned, and I know they'd be interested in trying to find something more stable, but no, the discussion hasn't gone any farther than that. And I think a lot of this is really gonna come down to what the village voters do this March.
Because if, no matter what, the village is going for a vote, and if in 2025, the town says no to the expanded coverage, all of that falls on the village voters.
That is correct. Except for the fire department, not unless we vote the fire department budget down too.
Earl.
Yes. Oh, wait a minute, I wanna be fair, I wanna be fair. No, Dave, wanna be fair. Sandy, you had your hand up, and I thought there was somebody else too. Yes.
I'm wondering how many police officers are on duty at one time? And also, if the police officers are up at the Morris's line, does that take away from the SWAT PD, or is that hired separately?
No, well, I'm gonna let Brian, hand this over to Brian as far as that Morris line question concerns.
Actually, I can answer both questions because I got confirmation of this today. For each shift of the PD, there is one officer on. So if there's somebody in the village, if it's village daytime coverage, one officer. If it's nighttime coverage, would be one officer for the town, one officer for the village, and the chief is on also during the day. Now, you may occasionally see an officer that has to go into work to do such things as to go to court. And he or she will swing back to the police station while they're there, and an emergency comes in, they're gonna go. So you can see 2 Swanton officers or more, depending, you know, they're sworn, remember, they're sworn officers. If there's an emergency that comes in, they've got to go. And so if they're there, they go. So that's why you may see more. The Morris's line, a little clarification on that. Operation Stone Garden has been around for a long time. And that simply is the Customs and Border Protection people, the federal government, will basically, if you will, contract with local, state, and county law enforcement agencies to assist them at the border with various duties. The federal government does not own the cruisers. They use all their own department's cruisers. It's an opportunity it's overtime pay, so officers could make additional money if they want. And so it's seen as a good deal. So that's not taking away from the normal patrol. The officers who are working Stone Garden are doing extra shifts.
How many hours are they?
For Stone Garden, I have no idea.
Sandy, you had your hand up. Well, I gotta be fair because if I'm gonna.
That's a joke, Earl, I got it too.
Okay, is there anybody else that wants to make a comment? We're getting right down to the end of our time. If nobody else, I'm gonna let Al, he had. You, all right, go ahead.
I have one question on the Alice Boys
Yep.
town. The 475,000 for 10 hours, is that negotiable? Because they say here the amount's requested. That amount, that hasn't been negotiated.
Yes, that amount the board has approved to be warned, the select board has. Okay. All right, Al.
Hey, Al, return again. To answer that better is that they approved it to be put on a warrant, so everybody will have a chance to vote on it in March. So it's not in stone.
No, it's gotta be approved, yeah.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to clear up is Earl keeps on saying, do you want policing? It's additional policing, okay? We don't want additional policing because it's gonna cost us.
You don't.
I don't, okay? So I just cleared that up. It's just additional, not police coverage.
Yes, Al, you made that very clear, and I do feel that police protection is important. I do feel that our best opportunities to have control over that in the future and guarantee that we're gonna have some is to work together with the village. Granted, the proposal that's out there right now, I don't feel is affordable. They gotta come up with some other options. Maybe that can happen, maybe it can't, but I feel it's important that we try to work together to have some decent coverage here for the entire community of Swanton. And I believe that if we can work together, we're gonna look good outside of Swanton, and it'll make Swanton a more attractive place for other people. That's just my personal opinion. I wanna thank everybody for coming here tonight. We've had a good discussion. You should have jumped when you had a chance, Sandy, but I'll give you a second. Go ahead.
So, my name is Sandy Scalesconer. I was born here about 4 years ago, and I need to die here at some point. But I haven't had the good fortune to live in Swanton all my life. I've had to live other places. First, I want to say how encouraging it is to have people talk about Rome Swanton. We've been talking Rome Swanton for over 60 years, and it sounds like there's a lot of support for that. And about the police, so there's never been a time I believe, in my lifetime, when we needed police protection more than we need it now. And a lot of it has to do with the drug situation that we're dealing with. I like to go to the select board meetings and the trustee meetings, and I hear Chief Sullivan's report. I think that we have better coverage now than we ever had before. And that's not to say that we don't need more. They are still working on that terrible murder that we had on First Street a couple of years ago. That is still being investigated. There have been situations where the Swanton P.E.G. have been able to get rid of people that have committed murders in the Burlington area that at one time lived in Swanton. So we definitely need more police coverage. And it sounds on one level like you people in the village are in the driver's seat, because if you don't vote for this, it isn't gonna happen. That was all I have to say.
Well, thank you for your comments, Sandy. Make it quick because we're on a timer here.
Okay, so I know that they talked about doing a different governing board, which would be made up of town, select board members and village. You mentioned something about vetoing, you wouldn't have, like, it would still be owned by the village, I know this, but this governing board is to show, you know, more solidarity, just like if Highgate or Enosburg were to be added, you would then add select board members from them, but what kind of authority would that really garner you if you aren't the owners? Like, are you able to say, to make any decisions with that governing board? Also, before we're done, I would still like to hear that person's question about each member's perspective on your opinion on whether you're for or against it.
Well, all right, we can do that because we do have to get going. You want to start, Joel?
Sure. You folks hear me back there? Yeah. All right. First, I gotta say, I'm newly appointed to this board. This is my second meeting in 2024. I was on the select board previously, so, you know, you can hold me accountable for some of that stuff that took place then, but I'm new right now. I do not support the village project as presented. And the reason I don't is because the town taxpayers can't afford it. With everything that's going on, you gotta take that project in a whole. The police, the fire, and the education tax that people have mentioned. Not to say any of the other services that we provide, highway, et cetera, that increase every year. So I can't support the project, but I'm not a village voter. So I just wanna make that clear. But I do wanna say, I do support the Swanton Police Department. They have a tough job. I've seen it, I've ridden with them. And I do support us increasing to the 10-hour coverage. And I just want to mention that would start on 1 April. It doesn't start on 1 January. It'll be 1 April after the vote. I do hear a lot of concerns out there about not feeling they're getting the bang for the buck. And all I can say as a select board member, I would try to work with other select board members and us working closer with the village, because I think there's areas we could improve on that 10-hour coverage to make sure that we're taking care of some of them. We're not gonna be able to take care of all the traffic, because if you don't put someone on every street for 24/7, you're not gonna get it all corrected. But there are things we could do to improve, and I work very hard to do that. So I support the 10-hour coverage, and leave it at that. Thank you very much.
I support the 10-hour coverage. I don't think we have a choice, because it's a management tool that they need. As a taxpayer, I could never vote for what the village is asking us to pay for our services, because we just can't afford it. I think sometimes we have to say no, maybe 2 or 3 times, to come up with the best solution. And perhaps saying no this time is going to bring us back to the table. I feel there are some other options out there that the village has not considered.
And I think we'll probably see more of that after I'm sure they're watching this meeting somewhere. So, but as far as the police force, I've lived here 75 years. I've never seen a police force this good. They are, and I'd like to also put a plug in, excuse me, for the fire department. We have an outstanding fire department, so all of our comments tonight, I don't think are to be conveyed back that we're not happy with the police department or the fire department. But as it stands right now, no, I wouldn't vote for that at all. Go ahead.
Cody Hemingway. So, to piggyback on Joel, you kind of took every word I wanted to say, but so I personally wouldn't support the project, and I know we're going to talk about that tonight, but the village project, which kind of dictates everything else that happens. I do support the 10-hour coverage, but on the grounds that the town has more say in the governance of the police department. I feel like if we're going to be paying a third of the cost, then we should probably have more of a voice, which Joel kind of touched on as well. I think they do an outstanding job. I too have rode along with them. And there isn't a lot of patrol because, again, if they pull somebody over, which they did when I was in the cruiser with them, you know, they took care of their business, and after that, it was just nothing but pushing a pencil after that. And that's unfortunately out of their control. With the 10-hour coverage that will be warned for the ballot, I noticed when I was looking at the budget, like there was just a lot of things that was out of the police department's control and the town's control. Like the dispatching was a huge increase, like a huge cost.
60,000.
Yeah.
65,000. And that's split equally, they're saying, between village and town for that bill, is what I heard. Is that accurate?
No, we should be paying a third.
The cost of insurance, the cost of pay for the officers. I mean, I would like a raise, but I probably won't get that. But everything, the cost of living is going up, which I know I've learned quite a bit from Mr. Bourgeois during these meetings, how we can't particularly agree with appeasing them. But in this particular case, I think it's needed. And a lot of it is out of our control. There's just not much we can do about the insurance costs and the dispatch and all that stuff. And it's a tough pill to swallow, especially when you're sitting up here and you're like, oh gosh, what do you do? And you're kind of nervous about it. But it's yeah, I guess that's all I gotta say.
Nicole Draper, for those of you that don't know me, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. I think this is a really healthy conversation, and I think it was really important. I don't know if you saw me, I've been taking notes because it's your voices that really matter to me and what I do every day. And being here at this table, I do support the 10-hour contract, and that's why I felt that it was important to bring it to you folks on our ballot coming up on town meeting day. Police presence is important, and I know it's not always vocalized, what they're doing, but at the table, when we get our reports, we see where they are and what they're doing, and I think it is making a substantial impact to our community, as we know that our community suffers with an opioid problem. It suffers from traffic. I live out on Hog Island, so I have to travel 78 every day, and I see those speeders. And I travel around town and I see them too. I think we need to continue to work on building the infrastructure so we can make our community a very safe and strong place to be. But I agree with my counterparts at the table. We do need to continue to look at the governance system to make sure that the town and every taxpayer here in this room has more of a voice at that table, so all of your concerns are being addressed. And I will continue to do that, whether I'm on this side of the table or whether I'm over there with you guys, because I think it is a very important piece for all of us. And again, if there's ever any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us at any point in time, and we will offer you the best explanation we have with the information we have, because it's important that we all continue to stay informed. So thank you again for your time this evening. I really appreciate your feedback.
So there you have it. I also support what the warning that we're warning this year for the 10-hour coverage. And even if I didn't, we wouldn't really be able to do much at this point in time to get a proposal from anybody else. I do have concerns about the bond amount that the village is proposing. I think there's an affordability issue there. But I do believe that affordability issue can be worked around, given time, and working together, and possibly maybe some other communities joining this as some kind of district area, and I don't, but it'd have to be set up from the beginning like that in order to keep everything at an affordable rate. But the bottom line is, if we're gonna see more coverage in the future, or even if we stay with the 10 hours, I mean, it's gonna be more than what we were paying before. And I don't care where we go to get service for 8 hours or 10 hours, it's gonna be more than we were paying before. That's just the reality of police coverage in this day and age. But I do wanna thank everybody for being here, and don't hesitate to call or email or whatever people do to any of us when you guys got concerns and things that you want answers for, because we really need your input. If this town is going to be the town we want it to be, we need everybody's help. Thank you very much.